So you're an employer and you have employees, or you're looking to hire employees. Quite often there's a lot of challenges associated with that. But one thing that you want to make sure that you don't do is hire somebody that's abusing illicit or illegal drugs. That can lead to a lot of liability and challenges for your company. Today's video, we're going to talk about employer challenges in drug testing and providing a drug-free and safe workplace. Hi, I'm Fulmer with National Drug Screening. Welcome to our video blog series. Today we're going to be talking about challenges with employment drug testing. We talk to employers all of the time. We get calls every day. I speak at conferences. I talk to them just when I'm out interacting in the community or at networking events. And they all say some of the same things. It's hard finding good people. It's hard making sure that you keep good people in your work environment. Well, a drug-free workplace is just one element of that, but that's something that I can share some information with you about. Having a drug-free workplace or a safe work environment is really key to being successful in a company and having a good work environment. Some of the challenges, though, with employment drug testing revolve around getting the test done itself. What kind of specimen type do you use? Do you use a urine drug screen? Do you use hair testing, or do you use oral fluid testing? Do you test for pre-employment? Randoms? Do you do random testing where someone actually scientifically selects people to be tested on a regular basis? Post-accident reasonable suspicion. All of these different things, you have to make a decision as an employer. What are you doing and what purpose are you following? Some employers conduct drug testing because it's part of a drug-free workplace program. For instance, Georgia, Florida, and several other states offer a workers' comp discount for following the voluntary drug-free workplace law. But you also have very specific requirements for that. So as an employer, you really have to know what you're trying to accomplish and then get the right information. That's why we share so much information on nationaldrugscreening.com to provide that. We provide state law references. We provide marijuana state laws, which is even more important than ever as that's ongoing and changing. And then just general education to help you make the most informed decisions. So what are some of the big challenges you're going to face on a regular basis? One is going to be getting the collection done. In some remote areas, it may be a challenge to find someone that can do the drug test collection itself or do it competently. Do you have to provide paper forms to the person, or can you do everything electronically? It's one thing we implemented with our system is you can schedule electronically at most places around the country, but not every collection site offers that. Not every collection site has trained collectors for this particular specimen type that you're going to be doing collections for. So those are things you have to take into consideration. How are you going to get billed for that? How are you going to set that up? Is someone going to do that for you? Or do you have to sit around and make phone calls? And we know you have more important things to do as an employer. This is an important aspect, but you have a lot of things that you have responsibility for. So making sure that you're as efficient as possible is going to be important. Now, once you've figured out how to get the collection done, electronic is always the best because it's going to be the smoothest, least chance of errors, least chance of issues. And you're going to be able to monitor it in real time to see if everything was done correctly. The next thing, though, is actually getting that specimen to the laboratory, and that relies on the collectors to actually send that specimen to the lab. Remember, there's a difference between the collection site and the laboratory. Now, some people do get results from the collection site, and that's called instant testing. We're going to talk about that in another video, and if you subscribe and like below, you'll get notice for all of those new videos as they come up. There's also a lot of information on instant testing versus lab-based testing on the website, so you have plenty of references for that. But let's just assume it's a lab-based test. We're sending it to the laboratory to get tested. Well, right now, as of the time of this video, the laboratories are struggling just like you are with finding employees, with getting things done in a timely manner. Not because they're not efficient, because they really are very efficient. It's because of the volume of testing, the volume of people hiring, the turnover that's happening that's requiring new testing to be done. So we're seeing a challenge with turnaround times, and that's across the board with multiple laboratories. Now, some labs might be faster one week and other labs faster a different week. That's just a fact of how things work. So working with a provider that's going to help you navigate that and be more knowledgeable about what steps to take and what your expectations should be is going to be helpful. But if you don't get that drug test result back, then how are you going to hire that person? That can pose challenges for you. The next thing that people don't realize is when they test expanded panels, and again, we have another video on expanded drug test panels and some of the things associated with that. But when you test expanded panels, more prescription drugs, for instance, there's more people out there that have legal prescriptions. And if they have a legal prescription, is it going to come back negative? Yes, but it has to go through a process. People don't realize that sometimes. So when it gets to the laboratory, it goes to an initial screening. That initial screen, if it's negative, the result gets released out. But if that initial screen is non-negative or there's any concern with additional testing being needed, it has to go to confirmation testing. And that can take anywhere from 2 to 7 days. If you're using hair testing, it can take even longer potentially. And remember, they can't release the result, they meaning the laboratory, until they have a valid, legally defensible result. Remember, they're certified labs. They have to follow a process. They do thousands of tests every day. So if you think that you can call someone up and say, hey, I want to hire Bob, so you need to call the lab and expedite my specimen and move it above 1,000 other people that came in today, that's probably not going to happen. So they have a process they must follow as part of their certification. So just be knowledgeable of that, and that's going to help you with your expectations. And you have to be able to communicate that with your applicants, and that's just a fact of the way it is. Now, having instant testing can resolve some of those, but again, if somebody has a prescription, then it's still going to have to go to the laboratory for confirmation anyway. So once it gets through confirmation, and it's either confirmed positive or negative, if it's negative, the result gets released. But if it's positive at the lab's going to send that drug test, again for employment testing, to a medical review officer, a certified medical review officer. That medical review officer is going to contact the donor to determine if there's a legitimate medical explanation for that positive. And if there is, they'll verify the prescriptions as necessary, contact the doctor, the pharmacy, etc. But that can take time. It's not something that's instant. It's not like they check a database, check a box, and it's done. They actually have to do certain things, and they have to follow certain procedures. So you can imagine if someone gets a drug test done on, let's say, on a Friday, and it's late Friday, it doesn't get to the laboratory, it doesn't get shipped out till the next business day, which maybe is Monday, gets to the laboratory on Tuesday, it has to go to confirmation testing, then it has to go to a medical review officer. You can see how legitimately it can take a period of time. Now you may say, well, some results we have back in 24 to 48 hours, and you very well may do that. If there's not a backup, everything goes smoothly, they send the specimen to the lab, the initial screen is negative, the volume that day wasn't as heavy as other days, then it's going to come right out to you and you are going to get that result right away. So just know that there are things that can create challenges during that time frame. So what are some of the other challenges that you might face? So we kind of talked about the process of the collection. What happens though if you send somebody for a test, let's just say a random, reasonable suspicion, post-accident, and they refuse to go for the test? What do you do then? Now if it's a pre-employment test, you can just assume they don't want the job, so that's a pretty easy assumption at that point. But if it's a random test, especially if it's federally regulated, they're required to go for testing. So what if they refuse to test? Do you have something in your policy to address that? How have you addressed it in the past? What steps are you going to take? Are you going to treat it, a refusal, as the same as a positive drug test? These are all things you have to be prepared for. And these are all things that I hear on a daily or weekly basis from employers that are having challenges. They just need to have thought through that. Preparation is really the key to making things move more efficiently, to simplifying your process. So what are some of the other challenges that might come up? The specimen gets lost in transit. It's shipping. Things can happen. I mean, it happens every day. Hopefully it doesn't. Everything with the specimens is shipped FedEx, so it's shipped, next day or overnight. So it should have better tracking and all that, but things do happen, so you have to be prepared to handle that. What happens if you're doing an alternate specimen type, such as oral fluid testing or hair testing, and the specimen gets to the laboratory and there's not enough specimen? Or there's enough specimen for the initial screen, but the initial screen is non-negative, meaning it's a potential positive, not a positive, but a potential positive. They have to be certain, so they send it to confirmation testing. But there's not enough specimen left to be able to complete the confirmation testing. Now you have to go send somebody in for another test. These are all completely legitimate things that do happen, and you have to be prepared to handle them when they do happen. Some of the other challenges with employment drug testing, comes down to whether you're doing on-site testing or after-hours testing or emergency testing, where you need somebody to come to your location, for a 24/7 shift. Maybe you're working 3 shifts, or you have people working overnight, or there's an accident at 3 a.m. Not having a plan is really not a solution to that. If you know that you're going to have that situation, simply be prepared. There's after-hour services. We offer it. Other companies, I'm sure, do as well. And you can have somebody on call. No, it's going to be expensive, though. You know, to have somebody call out, get up 3 o'clock in the morning and drive out to your location, maybe spend, 30 minutes to 3 hours there to get his test done, they're going to charge for that. So again, be prepared for that. One last challenge I'm going to touch on, because there's quite a few different ones out there, but most of these challenges with preparation can be overcome. But one last challenge we run into quite often is with Department of Transportation regulated testing. So someone goes to a collection site, and most collectors are female, just statistically, and most drivers of trucks and buses are males, again, just statistically. So what happens if a male goes in, only female collectors, and there's a specimen that's a temperature out of range for a federal test? Well, the regulations require that a second collection be done and it be direct observed, but there's no male there. This has happened a few times recently. So you still have to get that test done. So you may get a call from the collector that says, hey, we need to have a male come out here and be able to be the observer because we don't have anybody available. You may even have to hire a mobile collector to go out just to do the observation. But again, being prepared for it will help you resolve those issues. So employment drug testing can be simple, it can be complicated. As long as you know what to expect, you know where to get the answers, you know who to go to for solutions, you should be in good shape. I'm Tom Fulmer with National Drug Screening. Thanks for joining us on this video blog series. Make sure again you like and subscribe below. Check out our other videos on our YouTube channel, as well as nationaldrugscreening.com. Great blog posts, great information for you out there. We look forward to seeing you next time.